it's important for us to understand that we have to take care of ourselves in order to take care of anybody or anything else. So it's like listening to the instructions on the airplane, put your mask on first before you start to help others.
Your health, your mental health, your physical health is so important because it's so easy to take it for granted until you do have issues arising, and then you can't really even tackle anything else.
What's important for us is to understand what our personal goals are, what we want out of our lives, and not allow the outside noise to drown out the things that we would like to pursue. Because we have to be realistic in our efforts to help others and to maintain and fulfill our responsibilities. There's only so much you can do at any given moment. And you have to have your own set of triage system in order to know how to handle a call, especially or any matter, especially when you don't know, you can't control what type of issue is going to be presented to you at any given moment. So with that, I say trust yourself in how you are going to move forward in that particular situation where you have two demanding things and you can only do one at a time.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Dope Living Podcast. I'm your host, Janay, and I want to start this episode with a tiny moment, not a breakdown, just a second when let's talk about you and everything that you're going through at once. So your phone buzzes with a work message, a child calls your name from the other room, a loved one needs an update, there's something on the stove, there's an email or hundreds of emails you haven't answered. There's a bill you need to pay yesterday. And your body has this kind of quiet thought. I genuinely do not know who and what to respond to first. You still need to respond. You always do. But there's a part of you that feels a little more afraid each time. Not because you're weak, obviously, but because you've been strong and it's starting to cost you pretty much. So if that lands with you, this conversation will definitely resonate. We're not talking about how to push harder, obviously. We're talking about what happens when being the strong one, stops working. And what mental wealth looks like for people who are carrying a lot and don't have the option to put everything or even anything down. My guest today is someone who has lived that reality from multiple angles. Corrie Minor-Smith is an attorney, a former elected official, and an award-winning mental health advocate. She grew up with a mother living with a serious mental illness, moved 21 times, attended 14 schools before graduating high school, became a mother herself, and went on to build a powerful career and public service. She tells that story in her motivational memoir, #Driven, and now through her mental wealth, spelled WELLTH work, and her speaking, she helps caregivers and leaders protect their mind, their rights, their futures, while they carry a lot. That was a mouthful, but welcome, Corrie. I am so delighted and excited to have you, and congratulations on everything, first of all.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pure honor and a pleasure to join you in this conversation, a much needed conversation. And I hope that your audience is able to take away some tidbits that can help them. In reality, we hear a lot of things, cliche, just stuff that sometimes people throw out, but you don't really know how to apply it to real life and whether it is applicable to real life. So I hope that what we share today will help people in their real lives.
Right. And I'm so optimistic about it because I'm going to start speaking from experience. We're at the top of the year. This is 2026. And, we always start the year so ambitious. So there's just so many things to do. And you start to put them in. I mean, leaders, way makers, put them into action, and then we find ourselves now bogged down with, regimen, right? We want to kind of make sure we stick to, an optimal day, let's call it. And then, but we're also now, we have more responsibility. We've put more responsibility on ourselves. So now, in addition to that, everything that was around us hasn't gone away. Like, we still have to take care of our children, our parents, we still have to care for our spouses. So there's just so much going on during this time that I think this conversation is going to resonate so much. But Corrie, before we jump into it, before the titles, the policy work, the advocacy, there was just you, a young girl in constant transition, with a mom living with serious mental illness, moving from place to place. When you think about that version of you, how did being strong function as a survival strategy?
Wow. I think it's something that is innate. And I wouldn't say that strong was identified in my childhood. It was just surviving. And surviving in the ways that you learn. You need to eat, you need clothes, you need water, just essentials, shelter. Yeah. So I think in moving a lot, I am very grateful for the people who took me in, knowing that those essential needs needed to be met for me. And they didn't have to do it. They weren't paid to do it. And I'm very grateful that they did do it. So being strong can be a misnomer in a lot of the sense of the word, in that we are just living and doing our best to survive. What I have translated that to, and what I push for, is our quality of living and striving for the highest quality of life that we possibly can achieve, whether that's through the work that we do or helping someone else, being a caregiver for someone else. And as you stated at the top of the call, I just want to say, January is a very significant month, not just that it's my birthday month, but it is also a mental wellness month. And I just learned that actually this month.
Oh, wow.
But as I transition from December and all of the stress, it's good stress, but it's also bad stress, because some people stress themselves out trying to get holiday gifts, being there for their loved ones, and all the things, and putting pressure on ourselves to set New Year's resolutions, so like those goals, going to the gym and not using your gym membership,
right?
Transitioning, maybe following the Kwanzaa principles, because Kwanzaa ends on January 1st. If we just learn how to look inward and what will help us and our well-being, we can truly tap into what January means in those who started January as Mental Wellness Month. It's a time for us to take a pause and to be introspective and to understand what really helps us to be able to navigate our lives and, in a sense, be strong for ourselves and for others.
And in and of itself, can be considered work, right? And that's not the easiest thing to look inside and say, like, what is really going on with me? Or, I've been working on this for the past 3 months. I spent the last quarter really starting to think about, what is my vision statement? What do I want for myself? It's been a real journey. How do you, reconcile that with everything else that's going on around you as well?
Wow. It does take work. It takes inner work. It takes a level of tapping into inner peace, because there is a lot going on in our country and in this world. And those who are activists, those who are out on the front lines, pursuing, our rights and making sure that people are able to have the things that they need, it's important for us to understand that we have to take care of ourselves in order to take care of anybody or anything else. So it's like listening to the instructions on the airplane, put your mask on first before you start to help others. And that's not just a, general piece of instruction on the airplane before you take off. It is something to apply to life. It's backed by science. You know, if we lose oxygen in flight, we won't be able to function. So you have to put on your mask so you can continue to function, and then you are able to safely help other people. So in life and applying that to our lives, you know, we have jobs, we may be in school, we have our families. If you're a caregiver and providing care for someone else who is not able to take care of themselves, you have to still find the time to take care of yourself, because you will not be able to continue, whether your own health declines, whether your own mental health declines. You will not be able to continue to help other people. You will not continue to be able to be your full and effective self at work. And we all want to be able to do that. So in order to prioritize, we need to take a moment, and I call it permission to pause. For those who are like me that, very discipline oriented or rule oriented, you need a permission slip. You need a permission slip. You give yourself permission to pause, to reflect, to take a moment. Taking a moment, 5 minutes or whatever the case may be, is not that detrimental in the grand scheme of things, and depending on what moment you're in at that time. But you need to find a moment to pause and figure out your next steps.
That's such an important message. And it's one that, they say, and I've been hearing this quote lately, but they say, like, when you're out and about and doing whatever, you have like 99 problems. But the minute something happens to you, you have one problem. Like when your health is compromised, you have one problem. I think that's how it goes. I'll have to fact check that. But the point is that health is so important. Your health, your mental health, your physical health is so important, because it's so easy to take it for granted until you do have issues arising, and then you can't really even tackle anything else. And so for a lot of people listening, they'll recognize this pattern. They're dependable. They're the dependable one, the caretaker at home, the organizer, the problem solver, the one who can handle it. From the outside, it reads as admirable, obviously. Underneath, it can mean that you're they quietly kind of erase themselves. How do you know when your strength has kind of crossed the line of self-erasure?
Wow, that's a powerful question. And it can be literal, and it can also be figuratively interpreted. But when you are lost in doing everything for everyone else, like your first you first wake up in the morning and your first thought is about somebody else or something else that you have to do that's not for yourself, that I would see as a part of erasing yourself from your own priorities. Some of us get lost in our children and raising our children, which is a very important task. It's a very important responsibility, but we can't lose ourselves, the things that we are interested in, the things that we have as goals. So perhaps, our society looks down upon some women who pursue their career before starting a family, or pursue the career and the family at the same time, or choose not to have a family at all and focus on a career. What's important for us is to understand what our personal goals are, what we want out of our lives, and not allow the outside noise to drown out the things that we would like to pursue. And just in terms of being a caregiver, it's very important to understand, like you mentioned, about the mental and physical health when you are taking care of someone else. If you can think of it in a sense of assisting someone with ADLs, their a daily living, you are taking on the needs of a whole nother person. If you just think about the list of things you need to do for yourself, wake up, take a shower, a bath, and brush your teeth, all the things you're doing for yourself, and you have to do those same things or help another person to do those same things, that is a lot. And unfortunately, there is an alarming statistic in terms of caregivers dying before the person that they provide care for. So that
Really?
is erasure at its
Wow.
alarming interpretation. Erasing yourself to the point that your health declines and you die before the
Yeah.
person that you're providing care for. So I think it is important for us to really put things into perspective in terms of our responsibilities, whether it's our work responsibilities, our family responsibilities. We have to make sure that we are centering ourselves and making sure that we stay present in our daily activities.
And so, being that we're, at the top of the year, I can hear a lot of people saying, well, if I don't do it, no one else will. And a lot of us are in that position. So I guess my question would be, what's the low hanging fruit here? Or what's the easiest start? Or the most impactful start I would think the most impactful thing I could do.
I receive calls that are urgent in nature, right? And I may be in a situation where I have to urgently do something for work. For example, I am an attorney, as you mentioned, and I have to go to court. There have been situations where I had to go to court, literally going in to, present my cases. And I receive a call before I go into the courtroom. And it's about my loved one who lives with severe mental illness. I can take that call for a moment, but I have to put that call to the side for that moment in order to take care of my work responsibilities and then go back to address the call. And it has been urgent, both things urgent at the same time, but I have responsibilities. I share that because we have to be realistic in our efforts to help others and to maintain and fulfill our responsibilities. There's only so much you can do at any given moment. And you have to have your own set of triage system in order to know how to handle a call, especially, or any matter, especially when you don't know, you can't control what type of issue is going to be presented to you at any given moment. So with that, I say trust yourself in how you are going to move forward in that particular situation where you have two demanding things and you can only do one at a time. So in this example that I gave, I received this emergency call. I need to go into court. I can take the call. I'll call you right back. I can go into court to notify the court that I am present and that perhaps I will just be in the hall to finish a call. Sometimes, even though we think we can't do different things or we won't be allowed to do different things, there are ways to navigate through those, and there's more leniency in many situations than we may think at the time. So in that particular situation, you're able to address both matters as they have happened. Once court is all the way over, then you can pursue whatever is needed that is more than just a phone call to address the issue that was presented to you during that phone call. So that's just a real life example that I have faced multiple occasions in trying to assist my loved one, my mother, who lives with severe mental illness, and at the same time addressing my very real legal obligations before the court.
Yeah, I mean, you said something that stuck with me, which is that triage type of approach, right? Where, and I'm sure it happens as you start to plan and start to really think inward. And how am I going to answer things and in what order? And to be honest with you, what backups can I have? A lot of times, with me and my daughter, I have a hard time asking people for help with my daughter. I don't know why. I haven't really reflected on that before, but I don't typically like lean on people to say, oh, watch her while, I'm shooting an episode or, things like that. And so I think it's also important for us to take down the guardrails a little bit, right? And it's not bad. It's not something that you're doing and trying to abuse, but it's something that when you do have to triage and something does come second, that you do have kind of that A-B scenario where you're also not losing sleep over the decisions you've made because you've planned it out. So that's something that comes to mind as you talk about that triage type of approach. You talk about mental wealth with the well highlighted as real wealth for the person who's carrying the career, family, and maybe carrying a loved one that's having mental or physical health challenges and trying to keep themselves upright. What does mental wealth actually mean in their world?
Yes, wealth is just that, our wealth, our good health, overall health and well-being. We may not think of that in terms of grading ourselves, for example. I know in practicing divorce law and family law, there is an affidavit that the parties would have to fill out. And one of it is the health section, perhaps excellent, good, average, poor, and you pick which one. Mm-hmm. If you think about that in your real life, where is your health? Is it well, like excellent? Is it good? Like there's some level of wellness there? Is it average, meaning maybe you have some health conditions, but they're, fully manageable without too much outside of your daily activities, like not having to take 10 different types of medication or going to the doctor every week? Where is your well-being? Grade yourself. And what I'm striving to do through my programming and platform is to destigmatize the conversation about mental health. When you think of mental health, a lot of people don't think of it in a positive way. And a part of me destigmatizing the conversation is to call it wealth, because we want to be healthy. We want to be well. A lot of us, are striving to live as long as we can so that we can cherish those moments with our children, with our parents, with our family and friends. So mental wealth is just broadening the conversation to include our overall well-being, whether you have a mental health condition or not, but specifically for those who are caregiving to those who have severe mental illness. It was hard for me to articulate what exactly was going on, for example, with what I was doing for my mother and how it could potentially impact me in terms of the stress and things of that nature. And so my language now is inclusive of wealth, well-being, wellness, because while I'm advocating for those who are living with severe mental illness, dealing with psychosis, hallucinations and delusions, there's the people who are helping those loved ones whose health and mental well-being also matter. And while they're not dealing with psychosis, they are dealing with certain levels of stress and things of that nature that could impact their overall health and well-being. So mental wealth is kind of bridging both lanes, if you will, in terms of the mental health spectrum and helping those who are caregivers as well as those who are living with severe mental illness.
Yeah, so it connects me back to that sandwich, right? Where you're almost getting hit from both sides, because at the same time, most of these caregivers are either in a place in their career where they've got to be high performing all of the time. And on the other end, they have to be alert and almost, be able to tell the future almost in order to keep things moving. And most wellness advice people would say, take the day off, drink some water, meditate, which can then feel laughable when you are like in the middle here. How does your background as an attorney, former senior counsel, shape the way you think about mental wealth, especially for people who don't have the luxury of even like you step away from one and you step into something else, you know?
Yes, absolutely. My caregiving journey started long before I knew there was a label for what I was doing. My between my sophomore and junior year in college, my mother asked to come and live with me. When I was in college, most students don't want to be with their parents, let alone not necessarily at that time knowing what I was getting myself into in terms of the symptoms that I would soon witness my mother go through. Mm-hmm. But in college, I could not say no to my mother. I'm her only child. And so she came and lived with me, my first off-campus apartment. And then by my senior year, I became a mother. So I became a part of this, what they call sandwich generation, where I am taking care of my mother and I'm taking care of a child, a new life. And what I think is important through all of the demands that I've had in my life, being a latchkey child, feeding myself, getting myself dressed and going to school, to now as an adult and fully in my career, you have to understand that you do need to drink water. Mm-hmm. You do need to have rest. Mm. And you do need to make sure that you're eating, the most healthy way that you can. I call it conscious eating, right? Like, the things that are good for you, just making sure that you're having some level of eating those things, and dessert too, because I love dessert, right?
Yeah.
But we can miss these things as simple, but you don't know how quickly we don't do them when we are bombarded with all the things that we have to do on a daily basis, weekly, whatever your demands are. We can quickly not eat. We can quickly go through a whole day, a week without drinking water. We can quickly go through, a whole month and realize that I've only been having 4 hours of sleep. So what I have found is that those things are very important. And what is even more important is you being aware of what you are doing each day. You need to get rest. That sounds easy, but for my experience, that was one of the things that I was impacted by, was my sleep, not being able to sleep. Now I know the importance, and I can give praises to magnesium glycinate, because it is so helpful to sleep, like better than melatonin for me, right? Yeah. So you need to understand the things that are available to you to help you with these very simple things, but they're just as easy to neglect, ignore, and be absent from your life.
That's so true. So a lot of the conversations I've been having lately, and to be honest with you, for the year, it's been one of those things that takes time. It takes work, actually. It takes work to put myself to bed at 10:30 has been a lot of work. Taking the magnesium, I lay down, my brain just keeps moving and moving, but I can't give up. It's one of those things where if you've committed to something, like you said, you've got to do it, but you've got to realize that this has to be as intentional as possible because of how important it is, right?
Yes. And that it can easily not be done. We ignore maybe that we woke up 2:00 in the morning and weren't able to go back to sleep. We may ignore or not even realize, again, that we didn't drink any water. So I'm not, pop and juice and all that. That doesn't count. Like literal water, clean water.
Yeah.
You need to drink it.
And now they're saying you have to have electrolytes in that water, to even go further.
Put lemon juice in your water or lime juice. That helps.
Exactly.
Yes.
So for the person who literally feels like there is no ball they can afford to drop, what does realistic mental wealth look like? Like the Tuesday afternoon version at 2:00.
The Tuesday afternoon version at 2 o'clock. Well, you know what? I'll give you this. This is an example that popped in my head. Average work day, you go to lunch, right? You go to lunch, and on your way back from lunch, you have an officer, because you work for the government, and, you see this officer, but he's like, well, we had to arrest your mom today, but don't worry. We took care of her. And however that conversation ended, I don't know, because I was lost in the fact that someone just told me that my mom was arrested. And so I tried to let that go and go up to my office and just finish my workday as if I did not receive that piece of information. So let's say that's a Tuesday at 2 o'clock. What do you do? Are you able to concentrate? Do you, work on getting the bail for your loved one who's now incarcerated? Do you, contact the prosecutor's office or a defense attorney, or what do you do next? Have to take a moment for yourself to process this information that you just received. That's what's realistic. Taking a moment to process and allowing yourself to feel, because I literally tried to just, okay, I have to get this work done.
Yeah.
But can you concentrate? Can you focus? Give yourself permission to pause and to feel how you feel for just a moment, and then determine what your next steps can be. Perhaps it is relying on your unofficial or official team of people that help you with your loved one. Maybe it's what you're able to do after you get off work. But there are procedures that you can put in place, creating your own emergency plan, creating your own SOPs for your life, as well as your responsibilities as a caregiver or a parent or guardian.
Yeah. And so we've spoken about kind of at the beginning, really focus on you. What do you need to thrive, to live to have an optimal day, to be able to take whatever life throws at you and figure out how to prioritize those things. And now we talk about the pause, right? And the pause is when these things do hit you, not only are you prepared, but you can now actually find the space to think, process your feelings, and then understand how you feel in the moment, at the least, right? Before you react, right? Before you take the next steps. There's a quiet belief, of course, that a lot of us carry, and that's if we just do more, try harder, find the right words or the right resource, I can fix this, right? What I'm hearing is that, and before going to, let me try to fix this, it would be in our best interest to really think about, well, what does this make me feel? And how do I think I'm best suited to help in this situation?
Right. Because you may have to delegate. You may not be able to. Like, you can't just leave work at that moment. You can't just address everything, like make the calls and things in that moment. So having others, do you have a support system, right? Like you spoke earlier, not necessarily wanting to or feeling that you can rely on others to help with your daughter. But help can be so rewarding. We do have to allow ourselves to receive the help from trusted individuals, trusted organizations, but allow yourself, give yourself permission to receive the help, because we cannot do everything by ourselves. And I operated out of crisis for a long time. I'm now able to speak with some level of authority in terms of needing this permission to pause, because operating out of crisis, that's just causing more stress. That's just causing the likelihood of increasing your health a decline. So I encourage people to, again, have a plan in place. That's not just hyperbole or some clause I'm bringing up for no reason. Like, it's helpful to already have something, some guidance that you know you can go to, your go-to plan, steps of action that are already there, so that when the moment hits, you're able to tap into that. The people that you're going to call, the organizations that can help, the calls you need to make, and then that one call is going to, spread out to all the other calls that need to be involved with addressing this particular situation. It's a learned, proactive process. And I'm encouraging people to think about that now. Maybe you haven't had a moment of crisis, but if you're taking on some responsibilities that you've never had before, perhaps it's a part of what you consider, so that you can create a plan and it's there when you need that plan.
That's right. And, high performing individuals, corporate people that are climbing the corporate ladder, they're taking on more than ever before. And, they're expected to perform at a high level, no matter what's happening at home. When you step into rooms and you speak to these people, what are you seeing in them as they're quietly carrying everything and still trying to be the strongest person, even for a team now, not even for their family, but for a team of people?
I think that a certain level of professional vulnerability is necessary as a leader of a team. People want to see you as human. People want to know that you relate to whatever issues may come about. You get a call about your child at school and need to go to the school. Does your leader relate to that? Is your leader compassionate or sympathetic enough to understand that you need to address that matter, even though this important work thing is taking place as well? It's important for us as leaders in organizations, no matter how large that organization is to understand that life does happen. Everybody doesn't have, people in the home that take care of all of your matters, and all you have to do is roll out of bed, take a shower, and get dressed because your clothes are laid out for you. Your breakfast is on the table for you. That's not life for
not
everybody.
Happening for most of us. No.
Right. And I remember my first job in a law firm when I was in law school. There was a lawyer who he was at the copier. I was at the copier, and I don't know people just know I had a child at that point, right? I was married and I had a child at that point. But he told me something I'll never forget. And he was like, I always appreciate people who aren't able to just roll out of the bed and go to work. That let me know that he knew the number of responsibilities that I had before getting to the office on time, like everyone else, right? Having a child that needed to be bathed and, diapers changed and taken to the daycare, right? And still being in school. So still having to do your work, turning in assignments, whatever the case may be. Right. So I encourage leaders to have some level of relatability to real life issues and concerns, not, to the point of people taking advantage of these things, because that is a thing too. But I would say that's like a small 2%, right? One bad apple in a whole barrel. So you can address that individually and separately. So real life issues and having some level of relating to those things, so that you can help your teams to navigate, know when they can fill in for a team member, and that everyone still maintains their level of responsibility and accountability.
So speaking about that, it brings me to a time, and I divert a little bit. I've actually never told this story out loud, so bear with me. But I can tell it now as we have the conversation, it brings me to how out of it took me to a point where I never did the pause. I'm going back to the pause, because the pause is something I don't think any of us do naturally, right? And I have an extreme example for myself, right? My daughter was born 4.5 months early. She was born on a Sunday at 9:21. Remember it like it was yesterday. Yeah. And I was already in the hospital for about 2 weeks. I had her at 25 weeks. So I had her really, really early. I had her on Sunday and I could not process that. So what did I do? I went to work because it was during COVID. I went to work the next day. I did a full day of work the day after having, I went on my computer and that's the only thing I did that entire day. I cried my eyes out. I was bawling the whole time, but I was working and that processing did not happen. And I just remember how much it hurt not actually taking that pause. And so it made me think about that story because of how easy it is to just try to fix something with something that has no relation to yourself, right? So not taking the time for yourself and how that can really damage a relationship. More importantly, your relationship with yourself, right? Because there just wasn't any processing there. So never said that story out loud, but I think about it. And my husband talks about it a lot already to me because it hurt him to see that happen. But it was not being able to be strong in those situations that can take you to an extreme. And that was an extreme. And so if we don't start to really take care of ourselves mentally, we could end up in those types of situations. And trust me, they were happy for me to be there in the meetings doing the work. That no one ever said, Janay, didn't you just have a baby yesterday? Aren't you in the hospital?
Right.
No one cared. Not one person cared. So it was, well, people asked, but you know what I mean? It wasn't like, get off of this call right now, you know?
Right. Exactly.
Right. Like they should have been like, get off of this right now. So let's make it practical. If someone is listening, is carrying a lot outside of work, but doesn't feel safe sharing every detail, like I don't feel that safe sharing that, but we're in a safe space. So I'll say what's one way they can start to have an honest conversation with their manager, a loved one, HR, that protects their privacy and advocates for their mental wellness?
Yes, that is a great question. And it is very important to be able to trust the systems that are in place. I know that there are some negative feedback in terms of HR and you know, that they really operate for the company, not necessarily for the employees. But I really encourage people to tap into therapy for themselves, being able to have that confidential, trusted person that you can process your thoughts with. There are a lot of programs that offer free counseling services. And you also have the benefits through your work, insurance that covers different levels of counseling services, a number of sessions or whatever the case may be. And then you have the employee assistance program that also provides like legal services and mental health services. So you should look into the things that you would feel comfortable engaging in and understanding that ultimately it is for your benefit and your well-being, helping you to navigate the conversations that you may need to have with your leader. Because I understand that. I understand that people are not comfortable talking to people at work about their mental health issues and concerns. It's a part of the stigma, you know, and the people that we're supposed to be able to trust should have that responsibility and accountability for maintaining the trust so that employees are able to go to them, not just to say what their problems are, but for those individuals in the space or these different roles are able to provide the resources that are available from the company or from their insurance plan or other things. So this is a matter of being a resource, not just to have the conversation, but to seek resources in disclosing this very personal and very important aspect of your life in order for you to be able to fully fulfill the functions of your job. So I would start with seeking counseling services. And in terms of a family member, it's the same thing. Just because someone is related to you doesn't mean that you can necessarily trust them or that you feel comfortable with them. So which family member is that for you? And maybe it's not a family member. Maybe it's a friend, you know, and that friend being able to give you resources because of something that they know about at their job. And maybe you can check and see if it's something that's available at your job. So I encourage people to, you have to find someone that you trust for the initial conversation. And at the same time, knowing about the free resources like NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, that has free programs. Being able to call and having a confidential conversation with someone who is trained in providing mental health services or information 24/7. You know, you're able to text 741, text NAMI, NAMI to 741741 to be able to communicate with someone in those midnight hours when you don't or can't call someone else. There are services and free programs available for you and to just help you to navigate to know what your next steps can be.
Yeah, I like that reminder because, again, it can be so taboo even today. It's getting better, obviously, but at least where I'm from, insurance companies, we're as bad as insurance companies will still strike, put a strike on your record for seeking help still, right? It's not right, but, I think that it's slowly changing. Right. But in certain cultures and places, it's really, really taboo to still talk about mental health. So the more resources we can find where it's confidential, you can actually just seek information before you start to, let's say, really go an official route. For example, I think education and awareness like you're doing now is extremely important. And especially in socioeconomic conditions where we don't, no one else is talking about it. It seems weird to go out of our way to find out anything. You don't feel right, but it might not even be a thing, right? So, balancing that is still very difficult. And I'm not certain how long it'll take for us to finally get to a good groove with it, but recognizing that and understanding that there's still just little things that we can do, and little ways that we can find out more information and to bring awareness to what we're doing. So I have one question. Where can people connect with you, plug into your mental wealth work, learn more about #driven, and find community with others that are also carrying a lot of weight?
Wow, yes. I would say the central location is my website, CorrieEmpowers.com. I also do a lot of activity on social media, such as TikTok. I just got back on there, but, just giving out information, especially today. There was a very serious decision made by our administration in terminating grants that were nearly $2 billion in value. And then late yesterday, reversing that decision. And I just say kudos to all advocates who use their voices to, sound the alarm in terms of the detrimental impact of losing those funds could be at the local level. But CorrieEmpowers.com on TikTok, as well as on Instagram and Facebook. And my website, CorrieEmpowers.com. And I strongly encourage people who just want to know information for themselves, a starting point. I have my go-to mental health guide that you can download for free. It's full of information about podcasts, about books, movies, Instagram and Facebook and other social media accounts that you can tap into and learn more about whatever mental health condition you want to know more about, or resources as a caregiver. Again, it's called My Go-To Mental Health Guide, and you can download that at CorrieEmpowers.com. And we talked a lot about permission to pause, and you are able right now to download for free a guide about giving yourself permission to pause. Permission to Pause guide. And there are a nice little journal that I just created. Also, this could be helpful for you to set your plan, your own SOPs, and what you're going to do with your life and how you're going to help. And so I created this journal as well as a mug and a t-shirt, but you can see all of that at CorrieEmpowers.com. And more importantly, give yourself permission to pause, even after listening to this podcast, and then tapping into the resources that we talked about today and giving yourself the space to learn more before you take any action.
Exactly. All of the resources will be in the show notes for this episode. I encourage anyone that's listening that just wants a discreet way to just figure out what that reset for your mental wellness may look like. I highly encourage that as well. Corrie, thank you for naming things that so many people feel but don't necessarily have the words for, and for giving us a different picture of what strength can actually look like. And which a piece of it is vulnerability, right? That is strength. So to everyone listening, if you've heard yourself in this episode, that doesn't mean you're weak. Obviously, that's actually your superpower. And we say that quite a lot in each of our episodes. It means the version of strong you've been practicing may have hit a limit. And that can be the beginning of something more honest, more sustainable, and more you. So Corrie, I end every episode. I think I've ended every episode successfully with an affirmation. And the reason for that is because whatever we say, whatever we put out there is what we want to get back in return. So we try to end with positivity so that we get some positivity back. So today's affirmation is, today I've released the version of strong that requires me to disappear. I can be dependable without feeling depleted. I can care deeply without carrying everything. My limits are not failures. They are information. I am allowed to ask for help, to renegotiate expectations, and to build mental wealth. That includes me, not just the people I support. I am more than what I hold up for others, and I choose one small act today that honors that truth. And that is our affirmation of the episode. Corrie, thank you so much for coming on the Dope Living podcast. This was such an important conversation. As you know, I try to round up every conversation into holistic living, and this is obviously a big component of living more intentional, living more truthful, but living just more happily, just generally just happier, being happier. Yes. So incorporating all those things. So I thank you for being a part of this journey that we're going on with Dope Living. And to everyone who stuck around, thank you for listening. And you will see us next time on the Dope Living podcast.